I am currently watching, by which I mean addicted to, One Day at a Time. I discovered this sitcom on Netflix, watched the first episode, and fell absolutely head over heels in love. So before I continue watching it, I thought I would take a moment to reflect on the first episode. I rewatched the first episode to see if I could identify the elements that made me want to continue watching it. I'm going to maybe start doing this where I discuss the first episode of shows and then mention, whether or not that first episode is enough to hook me in, or if I felt like I had to watch another episode, or if I just gave up completely. But with this one, the first episode was enough to make me realise that I definitely wanted to watch this. This focuses on a family, a Cuban family, and it's a single mother with two children, and her mother, so the grandmother, also lives with them. And I have to say, a lot of the humour comes from Rita Moreno, who plays Lydia, Penelope's mother, and her entrance in this first episode was spectacular and really set us up for understanding not only this character's behaviour, but the way everybody else looks at her as well. She's definitely a matriarch. She's definitely a very passionate individual, a very stereotypical individual as well. But that works really fantastically well. She used to be a dancer. She's very flamboyant. Absolutely brilliant character. I love, even in this first episode, the way she interacts with Penelope, played by Justina Machado. She's absolutely fantastic. And that character, Penelope, I think is one of the reasons why I warmed to this so quickly, because I just thought she was fantastic, full of life, not without problems. I liked the fact that her mother lives with them, because it means that we get to see all three generations interact. She does have a teenage daughter, Elena, played by Isabella Gomez. I really, really love that. Unfortunately, I have the description, the character list up in front of me, and I've just been given a huge spoiler from a description for an episode that I've not yet seen. So, slight warning, if you haven't watched the show at all, don't visit the cast list on Wikipedia. But yeah, she's absolutely brilliant. She's an activist. She's, I guess you could call, a bit more geeky than your average sitcom female teenager. She's not into makeup or anything, and that's something that I find really refreshing, because that's not usually the case with a sitcom teen. She's absolutely brilliant. Then Alex, her son, Marcel Ruiz, he is, how old is he? I think he's maybe 12 or 13. And he is a breath of fresh air. He's got a fantastic attitude. I think he is a great fun. And he kind of reminds me of Max Fuller from Fuller House. Not a carbon copy, they're not exactly the same, but I feel like the way he presents himself, there's a kind of similarity in the characters. But I think he is absolutely fantastic. I really like the way that the main characters were all introduced in this first episode. I think it's very clear straight away that Lydia is the matriarch, and Penelope can assert herself as the mother of her children and technically the head of her household, because her mother lives with her. But you can tell that ultimately they all can work together as a unit, and it promises a lot of really interesting narratives. We get to learn very quickly that Penelope is actually a nurse, and we do get to meet some of her colleagues, and you can tell there's going to be a mixed bag of individuals here. I think one of my favourites is Dr. Berkowitz, and we don't get to know him too much in the first episode, but I will say that as the first series progresses, he is brilliant, and I love him. Really thoroughly enjoyed it. Really brilliant first episode. Really lays the foundations. Definitely sets the tone for the kind of humour. If I try and compare it to another sitcom, I would say Fuller House. Not necessarily Full House, but there is an element of Fuller House about the style of humour, the characters themselves, some of the issues it deals with, the fact that there's a pretty decent balance between the issues the children are going through and the issues the parents are going through. Obviously, I didn't get all of this from the first episode, but I think that straight away I kind of got Fuller House vibes. And obviously with it being a Netflix original, that kind of makes a bit of sense. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. If you haven't seen it, definitely check out the first episode. I really think that you will be hooked and drawn in from that first episode. I'm looking forward to watching the rest of One Day at a Time. I hope you give it a chance and fall in love with it as I did. It's promising an awful lot of brilliant things, and the first episode just was magical.